Hey, welcome back for yet another look at the X-Files. Today we're going to be looking at Revelations episode 11 of season 3. Premiering December 15th, 1995, Revelations places Agent Scully on the trail of a serial killer who targets people with stigmata, and a young boy who could bring about Armageddon. The episode begins at church as Reverend Arlie Ermey is giving the holiest of sermons. But just imagine how amazing church would be if he was giving a sermon like his character from Full Metal Jacket.
Why, you little maggot! You make me want to vomit! You goddamn communist heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm gonna stomp your guts out! Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you?
His sermon is so intense, his hands start leaking strawberry jam. With a name like Stigmata, it has to be good. One of the parishioners was so moved, he just had to thank the Reverend. A little rough with the thanks, don't you think? Mulder and Scully are called to the scene of the murder, mostly because of the stigmata and not so much the death. Although the Reverend isn't showing any signs of stigmata now that the service is over, unless he has superhuman healing.
I think this is a case of too much faith. And too much sugar.
How many times in this series is Mulder just gonna taste unknown liquids? But it looks like I was right, it was strawberry jam. The Reverend faked the whole thing, and he's not the first. There's been a series of deaths linked to people faking stigmata, and this makes number 11. Either the killer is some religious fanatic, or as Mulder puts it, a disgruntled altar boy. But Mulder believes the killer is still here, looking for victim number 12. The only thing worse than serial killers, though, is, school. Kevin Kreider is just the average kid, doing average kid things, but his teacher, like most teachers, is kind of a
Let's try some division. You do know the division sign, don't you, Kevin?
When Kevin attempts to do a little math problem on the board, his hands begin to bleed, just like the Reverend's. Except he doesn't have to hide his palms like the Reverend did. This isn't the first time this has happened to Kevin. The previous year, he came to school with his hands and feet both bleeding. Parental abuse was suspected and his father was arrested while Kevin became a ward of the state. However, his mother sued, regained custody, and Kevin's father was institutionalized for waving a gun at police and saying his son was chosen by God. Just sounds like typical family stuff to me. Scully has a little talk with the boy, but he has no idea how he got the cuts on his hands. Thermometers with red tips are generally used rectally, so I really hope they sanitize that thing. Kevin's mother arrives and she's given the fantastic news that her son is being put back into the shelter until they know he's gonna be safe. Mulder thinks Kevin hurt himself on purpose because he's upset that his father has been taken away from him. But Scully, on the other hand, believes they should speak to his father because he said Kevin needs to be protected, but from what? I love how as soon as they speak to the father about forces of darkness coming after his son, it's suddenly nighttime and raining, to make everything he's about to say seem even spookier. Kevin's father is a little nutty to say the least. He thinks the forces of darkness have been watching his son for some time, and that unless he's protected, they could be looking at Armageddon.
But God will find someone to stop it. Someone who is strong enough to make the sacrifice.
Kevin's father continues talking in riddles, something about full circle to find the truth, whatever the hell that means. Then we get a shot of the home Kevin's staying at, but it's clearly just a still image. Well, it looks like Kevin has started his own midnight society. He's telling some spooky stories to the other kids, and I'm kinda getting into it. But who the hell is this? The following morning, the agents arrive because Pluto from the Hills Have Eyes just took Kevin. His mother arrives and she's pretty pissed. Kevin was taken away from her so he could be safe, and now he's gone missing. They really screwed the pooch on this one.
Did you get a composite?
Yeah, it looks like Kevin was abducted by Homer Simpson's evil twin.
This isn't the killer, Mulder.
The kids gave a really good description of someone they barely saw as they fled in terror. But the mother does recognize him. His name is Owen Jarvis, and he was hired by her to do the yard work when her husband was taken away. Owen has taken Kevin because he believes he's very special and needs to be protected, even going as far to claim himself to be the boy's guardian angel. Look, I'm sure he's a nice guy who thinks he's doing the right thing, but there are better ways of going about it than child abduction. Leave that to CPS. The agents arrive at his home thanks to the mother and place him under arrest. With no sign of Kevin, they ask where he is, but Owen says he can't go home because he won't be safe there. Owen claims God put him there to protect the boy because if no one does, then it's the end of the world. He even begins to question Scully's faith because she refuses to believe in what he's saying.
I just want to go to heaven.
Hey!
Don't!
Holy shit, that was amazing. Let's see that again.
I just want to go to heaven.
Hey!
Don't!
He seriously just dives headfirst out a window to escape them and even breaks free of his handcuffs. I'm starting to think he may be the real deal. He even vanishes when Mulder tries to catch up to him. Kevin makes it back home, but where the hell is Mom? I'm guessing maybe she's out looking for his son? Kevin isn't home alone for long though, because it looks like one of the wet bandits has arrived. You know, Daniel Stern looks a lot different than I remember. Ah, Kevin, you gave away your hiding spot, you dumbass. Lucky for him, Owen makes the save, and if he can survive a fall out a window, then this guy will be a piece of cake.
Lee Jarvis, adult Caucasian male, 42 years of age.
Oh damn, I guess not. Yeah, Mulder and Scully arrived just in time to miss the whole thing, and Kevin's would-be killer managed to escape. But there's something odd about Owen's death. For one, they used a still image of him here so he doesn't move, but also his body doesn't seem to show any signs one would have after death. Temperature remains at 98 degrees, no rigor mortis, and he even smells floral, which is generally the exact opposite of how one would smell. Scully has a wild theory as to what she thinks is going on. Now what if Owen were an incorruptible? A Catholic and Eastern Orthodox belief that one who dies but does not show the normal signs of decomposition after death usually equates to their holiness, a phenomenon generally associated with certain saints. Now this might seem wild, and Mulder does openly mock it, but is it really as far-fetched as some of the things he's seen or thrown out there?
They're no more divine or holy than that ketchup we saw on the murdered preacher. And I think once you've finished your autopsy, you'll come to the same conclusion.
During Scully's examination of Owen's body, she found a few prints around his throat. The prints belonged to a wealthy businessman named Simon Gates, and it should surprise no one that a wealthy businessman with the last name Gates is working for the devil. Mulder gets a phone call that Kevin was seen being taken out to lunch with his social worker and outside the facility with his mother at the exact same time. Oh god, is this a Michael Charlie situation?
Kevin, lay off the horn!
Kevin's mother is having a little engine trouble, but thank God for a random good Samaritan that just happens to pull over. You know, you just don't get good help like this these days. Oh shit, well look who it is. Yeah, a little hot steam wouldn't hurt someone who works for the devil. Kevin distracts Gates and runs for it. Meanwhile, his mother gets lightly tossed to the ground, which I guess was enough to knock her out. But wait, a second Kevin gets out of the car to help his mother? So what, there are two Kevins? Just what the hell is going on? Gotta love those old cars that could have a smashed windshield one second and then a perfectly intact windshield the next. They really don't make cars like they used to. Kevin's mom is still a little groggy from her shove to the ground, and she ends up driving right into a ditch, which somehow immediately kills her. I mean, the crash wasn't that bad. Kevin seems to think this is all his fault despite doing nothing, although I still want to know how he can be in two places at once. Scully offers to keep Kevin with them until Gates can be apprehended because Kevin doesn't want to go back to the shelter. Not like the shelter was all that safe anyways. How come Scully never draws me a bath?
You never draw my bath.
See, I'm glad I'm not alone on that one. Scully tells Mulder the cut on Kevin's ribs wasn't there when the paramedics were checking on him after the crash, and even Kevin being in two places at once have been reported with certain saints. Yet Mulder still mocks her. Despite everything they've seen, now he's the one who's doing the scoffing. You would think Mulder would be the first person to take what Scully is saying seriously. The agents hear a noise come from the bathroom, but when they check on Kevin, he's already gone. These two are the worst babysitters. Scully wants to speak with Kevin's father again because she thinks he may have some answers this go around, although I would put money on even more cryptic riddles.
So this is the man who took my son?
You've never seen him before.
No.
Well, I don't think that went how Scully was hoping. So his father has no idea who Gates is or why he wants his son, although it may have something to do with all the drugs they've been giving him lately. She asked him what he meant earlier about full circle to find the truth, but he's far too gone by this point. All hope seems to be lost until Scully notices the recycling bin and eureka! That's it! Full circle to find the truth. Gates owns a recycling plant nearby, so that must be where he took Kevin.
The sun will be turned into darkness, and the moon will turn to blood. Because of you, son.
What a lovely thing to say to a child, but I guess Scully was right all along. She arrives all alone because Mulder didn't believe her and went to the airport instead. Gates must be insanely strong because he just easily pushes over a bale of cardboard and paper. Do you know just how heavy those things are? Gates' plan is to, I guess, throw the boy into some kind of giant paper shredder, which would definitely do the job. I just hope Scully can make it in time to save him. Or Gates and the boy can just jump in together. Oh, come on. How the fuck did he manage to hang on? Scully pulls Kevin and he gives her a big hug, saying he knew she would come. But she didn't really do anything. Yeah, she pulled Kevin out, but she didn't stop Gates from jumping in with him in the first place. Scully and Kevin say their goodbyes as the poor kid is sent back to the shelter because he really doesn't have a family anymore, unless his father can maybe get released at some point. She then makes her way to a church confessional.
Father, do you believe in miracles?
Of course, I see them every day. The rising sun, the birth of a child.
No, I'm talking about events that defy explanation.
This entire scene is one of the better parts of the episode. Scully dealing with her inability to believe what she's seen, even when it's part of her own faith. Although it mostly comes down to the fact that Mulder doesn't believe, when he usually does. So if he isn't seeing it, then maybe it isn't actually there. Revelations is an interesting episode. It's been a while since Scully's faith has really been mentioned, and the closest thing we got to an episode that delved into it would be Beyond the Sea. But considering her father's death happened in that episode, and death is a big part of the Catholic faith, it really should come as no surprise. The only thing that ever really rubs me wrong when it comes to the faith-based episodes where Scully is deeply involved is how quickly Mulder seems to laugh at the idea. Even in an episode like Miracle Man, he seemed to be more open, but when Scully tries explaining things she's seen, like her father's spirit, or the signs of the crucifixion on Kevin, he acts like a completely different person. Are his beliefs and hers really so different? You would think both partners would be more open to the experiences either one has had, but they always have to be at odds. I do like these more Scully-focused episodes, and while I don't think a lot of them are people's cup of tea, I still enjoy getting to know more into what makes her tick and what she believes. Revelation sits at a 7.1, and I myself would probably go with a 7. I do enjoy this one quite a bit. I did find one of my favorite user reviews for any episode by Midori AI, which says, "Only for rosary rattlers. I find this episode co-written by a priest. Stupid. I find this episode co-written by a priest. Stupid." Wow, much insight, many idiot. The episode was written by Kim Newton and directed by David Nutter. This would be the final episode David Nutter would direct for this series, feeling he wanted to move on and try something different. And although he was happy with the final product, the entire production turned out to be quite the mess. The episode kept going through continual rewrites even during filming, because they couldn't figure out how to make the religious aspect work without it coming off as hokey. The bilocation, for instance, where Kevin was supposed to be in 2 places at once. They made so many changes to the script that they even had to fly actor Kevin Zegers, who played Kevin, back to Vancouver so they could complete reshoots. At the end of the day, the producers were amazed with what they were able to pull off because of all the constant changes. A few things that were changed were the priest's dialogue at the end of the episode. The producers didn't like the way his voice sounded, so they recorded a new voiceover and added it in post-production. Another thing lost in the shuffle was a scene in which Kevin's father speaks in tongues, saying Klaatu Barada Nikto from the classic sci-fi film The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Klaatu Barada.
The entire episode was written as a means of reversing the roles between Mulder and Scully. They wanted to explore Scully's faith and how it contradicts with her background in science. Chris Carter felt the episode wasn't really about exploring traditional, organized religion, but more of one's own personal faith. But they still needed to tiptoe because Chris was worried they may upset someone, either because the episode was overly religious or because it could make a mockery of someone's faith. The episode was largely inspired by the phenomenon known as stigmata. In the Catholic faith, those with stigmata bear the wounds Jesus Christ was said to receive during his crucifixion. The first recorded case of stigmata was St. Francis of Assisi all the way back in 1224. Another case was St. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina. His stigmata was said to first begin in September of 1918. He was also said to have been a significant influence on the episode because not only did he experience stigmata, but he also had the gift of bilocation, although he himself doesn't know how or why it happened. Stigmata was also used for a 1999 horror film and can be found in various depictions throughout pop culture.
How come you get a social worker? I'm the one with stigmata.
For the cast in this episode, we have Arlie Ermy, who has a brief role in the beginning as the Reverend. He's had a lot of small roles throughout his career, and usually when he's cast, it's as some kind of military figure. This is mostly due to his role in Full Metal Jacket, which is definitely his most iconic. Unfortunately, he passed away April 15th, 2018. Kevin Zegers played Kevin, and they really tried when it came to naming their characters. He does alright in the episode for a kid, but outside of the X-Files, he's actually had a pretty decent career. He's been in a few movies I've seen like Wrong Turn and the Dawn of the Dead remake, but other than that, nothing I would really be interested in. Kenneth Welsh played the Devil's right-hand man, Simon Gates. He has credits going back to the 1960s, but I think most people that watch X-Files would likely know him as Wyndham Earle from the show Twin Peaks. He's also in The Day After Tomorrow, Miracle, and a whole host of other credits. Unfortunately, he too is no longer with us, having passed away May 5th, 2022. Last and certainly not least, considering what my channel is, we have Michael Berryman, who played Owen Jarvis. Now, Michael was usually cast in roles because of his unique appearance. He was born with, and bear with me, hypohydrotic ectodermal dysplasia, which according to Wikipedia means he was born without sweat glands, hair, or fingernails. Because of his unique look, he was often cast in horror movies and sci-fi, most notably his role as Pluto in the Wes Craven film The Hills Have Eyes, a film that is a huge influence for the Season 4 episode Home. Michael was incredibly happy to get the role for this episode because for the first time, he wasn't playing a monster. During an interview with moviesandmania.com, Michael said, "I reveled at the audition with Chris Carter for the X-Files. I got the concept right away for the Owen Jarvis role. I told Chris and director David Nutter that I was the actor they needed. I read and they said, 'See you in Vancouver.' It was the role that changed my image in Hollywood. I had gone from monster to an angel. The typecast had been defeated and I knew it." Out of his entire extensive career, Michael even claims that this role was his favorite that he ever got to play, mainly because of how different the part was when compared to everything else he has done. Michael is still going strong to this day, working mostly smaller B-horror movies, but you can still usually find him hanging out and signing autographs at horror conventions. Revelations is a good episode. I enjoy the role reversal even if Mulder is a little bit of an ass at times, but it's not like Scully doesn't give it back. Next up, however, is one of my all-time favorites, as Mulder investigates a small town that seems to be under attack by an army of cockroaches in War of the Copperphages. Well, that was an interesting episode, but what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. That's all for today, folks. I hope you had a great weekend, and as always, stay spooky.
Some people are calling it a miracle.
You're bleeding just like in the crucifixion.
That could bring peace to a planet or unleash hell upon the earth.
Forces of darkness, they've been watching him.
Judgment Day.
Where's the boy?
Is here. A brand new X-Files, Friday at 9, 8 Central.